welcome to a cover story conversation with Manish Tewari. He's a Congress MP in the Lok Sabha, former INB minister, and also someone who's very articulate both in Parliament and outside. Manish, we're talking at a time where, we've seen there is Rahul Gandhi has been disqualified from Parliament. There is also a crackdown on, various printers. Anybody who speaks anything against the government, there is a crackdown on the freedom of free speech. Before this, you've been also moving an adjournment motion on this also. So where do we stand legally and also politically on this issue?
Well, Priya, first of all, thank you once again for inviting me for your show. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. I think the larger issue is the chilling effect on the freedom of speech and expression. The action against Shri Rahul Gandhi is excessive, to put it very, very mildly. You have a CGM's court in Surat, which came to certain conclusions, which in our respectful understanding are erroneous. That judgment is flawed, and obviously that judgment is going to be challenged in a higher court of law. But de-horse that, you have a situation whereby the court which sentenced Shri Rahul Gandhi also suspended the sentence and gave him time in order to appeal to the Court of Sessions. And the Parliament Secretariat, the very next day, without waiting for even 24 hours to expire, what to talk of 30 days, decides to disqualify him from Parliament. This is absolutely an aberration. And moreover, there is a larger question involved. Does the Parliament Secretariat at all have the powers to disqualify a member of Parliament? Because if you read Article 102 and Article 103 of the Constitution of India, that power vests with the President of India. And the President of India has to exercise that power in consultation, in mandatory consultation with the Election Commission. Unfortunately, after the Lily Thomas judgment in 2013, and then the Lok Prahari judgment of the Supreme Court in 2018, where the Election Commission argued that the disqualification post-conviction is automatic, and therefore what the Parliament Secretariat then does is really a pro forma notification. In my respectful understanding, that is a complete misread of the law, because no judgment till the time it does not invalidate a particular article of the Constitution can really override the Constitution of India. Coupled with that, if you read the Representation of People's Act 8.3, which became the trigger for Shri Rahul Gandhi's disqualification, 8.3 says conviction and sentence. So therefore, for the ingredients of disqualification only get completed if there is both a conviction and a sentence which is concurrently in play. Here, the sentence was suspended by the same very court which delivered that judgment, allowing him 30 days to appeal and granting him bail. So therefore, the message that the government is sending out is anybody, whether he or she is in Parliament or is outside Parliament, if they dare speak against the government, they dare criticize or critique the government, your membership or your civil liberties will just be taken away. What kind of a country are we trying to create? Is this the sort of country that our founding fathers, those who led the struggle for India's freedom between 1880 and 1947, is this the kind of India that they had conceived, whereby if anybody critiques the government, puts a post criticizing the government, or, for example, if, let us suppose, a potential candidate for judgeship actually even forwards an article or a post which is critical of the prime minister or the government, he or she would be disqualified from holding that position. So there is an all out assault on civil liberties across the board. And that is why today, if you read the papers, in fact, one of our colleagues had tweeted snippets of various papers from around the world, and every paper has been unequivocal in its condemnation of this excessive action against Shri Rahul Gandhi.
And this at a time where the BJP and the Prime Minister are hoping to, they're inviting the G20 over, and they've, the great beacon of democracy. So I don't know how they are balancing the two narratives.
It's completely imbalanced. It's completely imbalanced for the simple reason that if you read the international press, and most of the countries in the G20 are from a democratic bent of mind or are democratic nations, suspending the principal um, opponent, the principal vocal opponent of the government in the opposition from parliament, I don't think it requires rocket science for anybody to put two and two together that this has only one explicit intent, and that is to muzzle dissent and to silence criticism.
But I was speaking to some BJP leaders, just the Rahul Gandhi case, not the case against, crackdown on printers who are printing posters criticizing Modi, which the opposition parties wanted during election year. But let's just look at Rahul Gandhi's case. The government is saying that, actually, I spoke to a senior minister. He's saying, look, what did we do? It was a Surat court that found him guilty. And it is, if we had allowed him to attend parliament while being convicted, then it would have been a contempt of court. So which is why the speaker acted so swiftly and the way he did.
Well, that's a completely and absolutely speculative argument, because because even the ingredients of Section 8(3) of the Representation of People's Act 1951 clearly postulate that a sentencing conviction has to be accompanied by a sentencing for the ingredients of disqualification to come into play. And here, the sentencing was stayed by the same very court, or the sentence was suspended by the same very court, which then gave him 30 days to appeal. So, therefore, the tearing hurry actually completely belies the defense which the government has been trying to put out, which in any case is a very weak defense. But then, as I earlier said, this is not about Shri Rahul Gandhi. This is about all of us. For example, if somebody is watching this broadcast in some remote corner of the country, and you and I, during the course of the conversation, say something which he or she doesn't like, he will go and file a defamation proceedings in some far corner of the land. And then the process becomes the punishment, because you go to the Supreme Court to get that case shifted, and or you have to go and appear in that court. And that is why in 2013, when I was INB minister, I had actually mooted the decriminalization of defamation. In fact, I had publicly made a case that this is a civil wrong, and therefore Section 499 and Section 500 should be deleted from the Indian Penal Code. And guess the maximum resistance came from whom? The maximum resistance actually came from the current ruling establishment when they were in the opposition. I mean, some people are no more, so it is not appropriate to really be sharing those conversations when they are no longer there. But I can tell you, because we require the support of the opposition to get it through the Lok Sabha and the Raj Sabha, and that support wasn't forthcoming. So therefore, this has larger and more ominous consequences than just Shri Rahul Gandhi. And that's why you also see that for the first time, perhaps, 16 or 18 opposition parties have gone to the Supreme Court and have appealed to the Supreme Court in order to ring fence the excesses of investigative agencies who are completely and absolutely being used as an instrument to persecute and hound leaders of the opposition. I don't recall another instance in the past 70 years where joint opposition would have gone to the Supreme Court with a petition of this kind.
No, in fact, at the outset, I think Manish, I must take anticipatory legal aid from you in case there is a case. At least I have a lawyer on the panel. But
yeah, well, that's essentially what it has come to. That basically, the government wants you to install a sensor in your head. That be very careful of every word that you utter, every sentence that you write, every social media post that you put out, because at any point in time, your criticism or the rejoinder to your criticism would, as Rajkamal Jha the other day put it at the Ramnath Goenka Awards, would be a police FIR.
In fact, I remember it was Amar Singh who really, instigated this. He would file a defamation case against anything that was written. So after a while, people became very careful while writing about Amar Singh. So this is kind of a, anticipatory strategy of the government also, I can see.
Well, in the sense that, I do definitely agree that, let's suppose if somebody is hurt, somebody is defamed by words, actions, or imputations of someone else, they have the right to seek legal remedy. But does that legal remedy lie in criminal proceedings, or is it a civil wrong? Is the question which really needs to be decided. And I think the time has come for the Supreme Court, like they read down Section 377 of the IPC from the statute book. The time has come for the Supreme Court to read down Section 499 and 500 out of the Indian Penal Code. This has just gone too far.
And I think you do hope the court and the judges are listening to this, because I totally think you made a very valid point here. But the political ramifications of this, Manish, now there are a lot of arguments, like you yourself said, all the political parties have come together and condemned this action. Earlier on, and Arvind Kejriwal or Mamata Banerjee was reluctant to share a platform with the Congress or come on the same page. When Manish Sisodia was arrested, the Congress did not come forward. But now on this issue, I think has united everybody. So isn't it detrimental for the BJP in that sense, politically speaking?
Well, hubris is always your worst enemy. And I think this government is belaboring under a very high degree of hubris. And therefore, you are absolutely correct. The entire opposition has come together because everybody can see as to what this is all about. An attempt to browbeat, an attempt to intimidate, an attempt to coerce, an attempt to try and completely and absolutely ride roughshod over any dissent. I recall when I was in the NSUI, this was in the mid 80s, I was the national president of the NSUI. The Bofors scandal had broken out, right? Which ultimately then everybody was honorably exonerated. And those people who are in the government, their student organizations used to go around shouting very noxious slogans, which I do not want to repeat on your show. But those slogans were not met by an FIR. I was appalled to see that just because posters have been put up, and for some strange reason that printer must have got scared and he didn't put the print line. You actually pick up 100 people, you pick up the printer and put them behind bars. I mean, after all, in this democracy, doesn't anybody have the right to say that we want an alternative government? Or do we have a government in perpetuity?
Manish, on this issue of Rahul Gandhi, we were discussing the political ramifications. How do you think the Congress should react? Now, there are 2-3 reasons. One is that, Rahul Gandhi should not challenge the disqualification, but actually get the sympathy vote. And, he anyways is a reluctant politician. His attendance is 5%. So in that sense, he gets to play the victim card, he gets the sympathy, and he gets an issue, a moral high ground. Two, he goes and challenges it and gets that statement struck down. And, within a month or so, then it will be business as usual. That is the way politics is. But he is back in the house.
No, I think it is very imperative that Shri Rahul Gandhi must come back to the House, because you cannot have such excessive use of powers that are available under the statute, which unfortunately has happened in this particular case. And as I was earlier pointing out, there are enough legal grounds on which this judgment can be challenged, and of course will be challenged before the appropriate court of law. And suffice to say that this is not the first time that power has been used in such an excessive and arbitrary manner. I recall in the September of 2008, the Punjab Vidhan Sabha had then taken away the membership, disqualified the former Chief Minister Captain Amrinder Singh from the membership of the Punjab Vidhan Sabha by a resolution. And in 2011, a constitutional bench of the Supreme Court actually put him back into the Vidhan Sabha. So the fact is that there is no running away from the fact that there will be a judicial process or a legal challenge which will play itself out, all the way from the first appeal till the Supreme Court. So to answer your question, I think this order must be challenged and it must be struck down, because this is not about Shri Rahul Gandhi. It is about its impact, its implications on the larger question of the freedom of speech and expression in this country.
That actually makes a very valid point. There is a largest role at stake here than just the fortunes of Rahul Gandhi. But there is a precedent that is being set or reinforced over here. But Manish, if you take on this thing, there is a Karnataka elections coming up now. Congress is going to be busy fighting this case. They did not get to raise the Adani issue as much as they could have. They had planned to, because of either the Treasury benches are disrupting their own budget session by talking about Rahul Gandhi, whether it is the Cambridge speech or the now. So is there something happening in which the narrative is being taken away from the Congress? You're not getting to raise the issues that you really feel will work. Are you being distracted from the Karnataka elections? Now the next month will be spent in agitations all over the country rather than focusing on Karnataka.
Well, Priya, Lok Sabha has 543 members.
But Congress is only, what, 40?
And if 300 out of them stand up, which is the Treasury benches, and start disrupting Parliament, what is the kind of message that you are trying to send? That for government, Parliament does not matter. I mean, you've had this strange spectacle of a 45 lakh crore budget passed without a discussion. If this is not totalitarianism, then what else is totalitarianism? That the government, decide that you will disrupt Parliament on a completely speculative and frivolous issue, and then get your parliamentary business done in the din. The simple message is that in our political view, Parliament is irrelevant. It is redundant. And therefore, if the supreme temple of democracy is being rendered redundant by its principal stakeholders, the Treasury benches, what is the direction that this country is taking? I think that is the larger question at play, that are we moving towards a situation whereby whatever we fought for, the values that we imbued into the Constitution of India, everything is now up for grabs? Everything is going to be just rendered redundant? I think so. Therefore, there is a fundamental battle for the soul of the nation, which is in play. No longer is it about politics as usual. I mean, I have been an observer of Parliament for many years. I'm now a member of Parliament for close to 8.5 years, and I have never seen the Treasury benches disrupt Parliament. And then if you've disrupted Parliament, your government should not be getting their parliamentary business done in that din. In fact, the budget cannot be passed without the House being in order. You've transacted financial business worth 45 lakh crores without the House being in order. What is the kind of message? I think people of this country will need to think very seriously about these issues.
But this is not the first important bill they've passed, Ms. Din. This has become now the modus operandi. Most time we're seeing, I've rarely seen a parliament function full time in this with this government in recent times.
Priya, there is one thing that the opposition creates a din, right? The opposition doesn't allow Parliament to function. Then it is absolutely legitimate for the government to get its business done. That, all right, you guys, you're not prepared to sit down and behave in a civilized manner for whatever issues that you may have, then, we'll go ahead and get our legislative business done. But here, it's a strange situation. I will interrupt, and then I will use that interruption to get my business done in the din. That's a first. That is dangerous.
Quickly, I have you here with me, Manish. I can't not talk about Punjab also because, you are also an MP from there. What is happening is the state losing, you had in fact warned me earlier that a state like Punjab, a border state, has to be governed with much more caution than any other state. But that seems to be that narrative ever since, I think, the elections, we've seen one catastrophe after the other. If
you would rewind to the many conversations that we've had before the current government came into office in Punjab, and even before that, I've always held and believed that Punjab is an extremely sensitive border state, and it requires extremely deft handling. Unfortunately, what has happened over the past 1 year has allowed the ghosts and phantoms and the apparitions of the past to surface with a vengeance. And that does not augur well for the peace of Punjab. So therefore, border states like Jammu and Kashmir or Punjab, or even India's northeast, require state and central governments to work in tandem on principal issues where national security is concerned. Because after all, your friendly neighbor across the border is not prepared to give up on his machinations. He waits to exploit every contradiction that is available. And therefore, under those circumstances, you need to be extremely careful. Even what has been happening over the past 1 week, for the lack of a better word, is a very strange spectacle. And they are calling him the next Bhindranwale or not, So in terms of this secessionist movements coming up, is he getting some support from the locals? Do you see that movement coming up again? Are we seeing a redux of that those days? It's actually, you see, there are no black and white binaries out here. There are nuances. And the nuance is that constitutionally, everybody has the right to profess, propagate, and even preach their faith. Even proselytization is actually a part of that fundamental right of religious freedom, which is guaranteed by our constitution. So as long as somebody preaches his faith, I do not think there should be any problem with that. The problem occurs when you try and do it in a manner whereby it starts creating unnecessary tension in a border state. And that is when lines get crossed. And different specters then start manifesting themselves. So unfortunately, this situation was allowed to slip. And the reason why I'm being very careful with my words, because I know the sensitivity of the state that I represent in Parliament. And therefore, I'm the last person who would want that there should be any further tension than what is already there. So therefore, under those circumstances, I can only say that the situation could have been handled much better. Much better by the center, much better by the state government? By both. By both, because ultimately, you see, border states are peculiar creatures. While the remit is of the state government, where law and order is a state subject. But the central government also has a very large role to play in these situations. And therefore, under those circumstances, I think when the situation started evolving portentously, it should have been really culled at that point in time.
That is true. In fact, today has been actually a pretty serious interview on two topics I think that are of great concern today in politics today. But thank you, Manish Tewari, for coming and also giving such a statesman-like view on both the issues. You know, you gave us the legal aspect, the political aspect, and of course, the situation in Punjab. I think you took a pretty mature view of it. Thank you so much for this conversation.
You're very kind, Priya. Thank you very much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.